Round one, fight!
Alright, testing really quick. So, this is going to be a brief overview of Shimo in Yada Enter the Eastward. Um, she didn't receive that many changes, but because the game changed a bit around her, I think there is some stuff worth mentioning. Some stuff really not worth mentioning, but we're going to go into that now. So I'm going to start by covering her normals. To begin with, you have her Stunning Light Punch, which, as you can see here, it's kind of useless. Uh, it's -3 on hit. You really don't want to be doing it. Technically, you can chain into this from other normals, primarily her crouch light kick, but as you can see, it doesn't combo first off, and then secondly, it's still minus, so it's just a normal you kind of don't ever really want to do. Next up, you have her 2 light punch, her crouching light punch. This one's surprisingly good. It's -1 on hit, which isn't fantastic, but the upside to that is that it's quite long. This is super cancelable, and I'll see if I can demonstrate it on the first try. Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, that's a bit of a tough one to hit, but I don't really use it when I play, but if you can get some mileage out of it, I think it's worth noting. And her jumping light punch functions quite the same way. It's almost identical in terms of animation, and it does the same thing. Obviously it's not minus on hit if you land it jumping, but still quite nice. So the next one is her jumping up light punch. This is like a command normal that you get by jumping and holding up while you hit light punch in the air. This one does juggle, which is notable, and also it is special cancelable. So as you can see here, you're able to juggle off of it thrice, and you can also do Shinkoenzan off of it, if I can get that. The timing is pretty strict. Normally you're not doing Shinkoenzan off of this. You have better options. This one, honestly, I don't really get a lot of mileage off of it, but I could see this being like a good air-to-air. Kinda, maybe. You have better air-to-air options, but this button does exist. It's not entirely useless. Alright, moving on to her light kick normals. You have a standing light kick. This one on its own isn't really noteworthy. It doesn't chain into anything. Well, I suppose you can chain it out of crouching light kick, but it's not really something that you're going to do much. What is fantastic about this is that it is the starter for her target combo, which is stand light kick, stand heavy punch. And this one is great. We're not going to talk about it yet. Heavy punch isn't normally cancelable, as you can see here, but when you do it out of the target combo, it is. And it makes for some really great combos, some really good pressure even. It's something you should get used to using a lot. Furthermore, the range on this is quite nice. You know, you could really, like at max range, you could still get Yugizan, Retsugizan, things like that. It's a good button to keep in mind. Her crouching light kick is her normal that you will probably use the most outside of standing light kick. Crouching light kick is notably, it combos into itself, which is unique amongst her normals. I guess I guess disregarding heavy kick, but we'll get into that later. And furthermore, it does cancel into her specials. So if you're just doing a very like basic light string, you know, you do one of these. I should note that you can do light kick Yugizan, but this combo in particular is like a bit hard to get consistently. You have to do the cancel really quickly, and it's not always the easiest thing, but it's still useful in the grand scheme of things. I believe this is the only way to combo out of her universal overhead, but we'll talk more about that when we get to the universal overhead section. And last, but certainly not least, is her jumping light kick. Now, firstly, you'll notice right away that the angle on this move is quite low, right? And it does let her do instant overheads like this, which are fantastic. And it's a good way to keep your opponent on their toes, close out around, things like that. But more importantly, one of the properties of jumping light kick is that it is special cancelable. So you can use Shinkoenzan after it, and this leads to one of her better mix-ups. We'll talk about that in depth later when we get to like the combos section of this guide, but it's still quite useful to actually be able to do this, And you can go into any Shinkoenzan version. You can go into EX. It doesn't combo outside of light, but it's still great. And it makes for a decent air-to-air, I suppose. I mean, the angle could be better, but if you're throwing this around, and you will be in the air as Shimo quite a bit, it's still something worth keeping in mind. Alright, so on to the punches. You have her standing heavy punch. This move is interesting because, on one hand, it doesn't really cancel into anything. It's 0 on hit. And at first, it could seem like this is kind of a throwaway normal. But firstly, you do gain meter for throwing this option out, which I believe is true for most of her heavies. Let me see if I can demonstrate this real quick. As you can see here, you gain meter for using it, right? Which is nice. But most importantly, this is a really good preemptive tool to use in neutral. Like all normals of this nature, it can be parried quite easily, but where you're really going to wind up using it is that for opponents that can throw out really strong normals, like Crow, I'll demonstrate this here briefly. Oh, I think I still have recorded data for it. So you'll see here that, her standing heavy kick can get crushed by this move, but standing heavy punch will let you either trade or keep you at a safer distance to just toss this out, So this is a move you will be using a lot in neutral, mostly to stuff out opponents with really great grounded normals. Moving on to her crouching heavy punch, I wish I could sing this move's praises as heavily. Unfortunately, I can't. It does have unique properties. Firstly, it is special cancelable, so you could do, things like that. And of course, it does kind of have like this weird crouching box thing, but the hurt box for this move winds up being extended before the actual hitbox comes out, and as such, this isn't as great of an anti-air as you'd suspect. One thing that is special about this move, she shares this property along with Hina, is that it is super jump cancelable, so you could do one of these, and you're not really going to use that much. If you are familiar with Hina's kit, Hina actually gets a knockdown off this. You could hit anybody at any time, and this will launch them up for a juggle, and in Hina's case, you can combo after it. In Shimo's case, that's not so true, but it's a move you will use every now and then, I'd say. Next is her jumping heavy punch. This one's pretty great. If you are ever in the situation where you're jumping at your opponent and you do the BL shift, and they take the bait and you get a parry low to them like this, you're probably going to wind up doing heavy punch in order to continue that combo. And as far as that goes, it's a pretty great normal. You just do one of these or one of these, right? Like it's just a very standard jump in. Keeps a lot of space in front of her. It's a decent air-to-air. It's a good normal overall. And last but not least, as far as her heavy punch normals go, she does have a command normal off heavy punch, which is J2C, or J2HP, however you want to say it. This move is quite unique. Firstly, you can see that the hitbox is pretty long underneath her, but it actually comes out behind her rather than in front, and it makes it so that you can do cool cross-ups like this. I've had a lot of success personally doing this kind of thing in the corner, because she can steal the corner with this, and getting your opponent when they think they're not so worried about a cross-up. A lot of characters in this game do struggle with really good cross-up normals, and this one is remarkably consistent. You have to worry, of course, about it being parried, like all of the normals, but, you could always BL shift into one of these and get the combo off of it afterwards. Overall, it's a normal that you'll use quite a bit. And then moving on to her heavy kicks. She has her standing heavy kick, which is, I think if you ask Shimo players what their favorite normal or what their most used normal is, it's this one. Against most of the cast, you're going to be destroying them with this in neutral. The range on it is fantastic. It's not very slow. It doesn't have a ton of recovery, and it is special cancelable. So, you could really go into anything off this. You could go into Retsugizan. You can go into EX Retsugizan, which I don't have the meter for. You can go into EX Retsugizan off of this. Once my meter comes back. Yeah, thank you. You can go into her command dashes. It's a normal that you will use extensively. And I think the same is true for her crouching heavy kick. This one is kind of a slide, and because of that, it makes the nature of canceling it a little bit weird. Just a couple of things to note about this. Now, you can always go into just her command dash and, like, whatever punches off of it, right? It cancels like anything else. But at point blank, you have the time to go into Retsugizan. It's not so consistent at further ranges. You can see here that I'm doing it pretty early and still not linking it. If you are going to use slide, please keep that in mind, that the range at which you use it does change the cancel window for the move quite a bit. Fortunately, because it's a slide, at different ranges, it's varying levels of advantageous on block and on hit. Right here, you see I'm +5 on hit, so maybe I could do like a... Yeah, it's not it's not really something that you are going to use for frame advantage. You have better options for that, but it's great. I think it's a move that you will use quite a bit, especially against Crow. If your opponent's throwing out a lot of standing range normals, you can get in on them with this. So 2 more normals I want to talk about. You have her jumping heavy kicks, which is a fine normal, but I think loses out in utility to her jump heavy punch, right? It is cancelable, and it does combo. So, I mean, like, as an air-to-air, it's decent, but once again, like, I say that when, you've already seen this move. It's like, you have better air-to-air options overall. But it's not useless at all. It's pretty great. I think you can get EX Shinkoenzan off this. Yeah. And it leaves you pretty advantageous on block and on hit. Lastly is a universal one. It's just the sweep. Every character has a sweep. Some of them have it on 2 heavy kick. In her case, it is off 3 heavy punch. I get this mixed up a lot. It's nice. You're advantageous off of it. It's a normal you'll use whenever you think sweeps are necessary. Although it's kind of hard to advocate for it when you do have the slide. And last but not least, you have her universal overhead. Her universal overhead, compared to the rest of the cast, is quite unique. For most of the cast, universal overhead has varying advantage based off whether your opponent is standing or crouching, and on block or on hit. But in her case, it is +5 on hit if they're standing. If they are standing and block, it is +5 on block, which is massive. This is great to use. You can really just toss this out. And on hit, it is... On hit crouching, rather, it is +6, meaning you can combo into her light kicks. That's a tough link to do. You don't have a huge window there, but it is something that I would recommend getting down, even though, as you can see in this video, I don't have it down all the way. And then on top of that, you know, the crouch light kicks cancel window is pretty tough. Let's see if I can get it. Yeah. Her universal overhead is great. It's good to just kind of piss your opponent off, right? Like, you're just going to be... you're playing a rushdown character in the first place, right? So, you know, you do some of these. It's forward advancing. You could do it out of block. It's just great. And, of course, you have her guard break, which... I think on most of the casts, the guard break is more useful. You could just toss this out or whatever, but... it's not like Azure where you have like a ton of setups to go into this. It's just kind of there. And most opponents aren't going to sit and let you, you know, charge the shit up. But it exists. And I believe that's it for her normals. Are there any other that I need to talk about? Got one of these. Yep, okay. So that's mostly it. And from here, we're going to go on to her specials.